Armchair Travel, we are heading to Europe. Well, I'm imagining right now it's probably quite warm. Someone who's been there, in particular to Spain, to Barcelona, is Becky Bermingham joining me now. Hi, my friend.
Hello, Barcelona.
Barcelona. Why are we saying it like that? I think somebody in a movie pronounces it like that, right?
Yeah, I think that's correct. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, but we just liked it anyway. So you were recently in Europe. You went for a wedding.
Yeah.
And then, as would be the smart thing to do when you're going all that way, you tagged on some other travel. I know you had an amazing time. What was funny, you and I worked together at Rema Media, and I didn't know you'd gone, and I just started seeing these insane photos of Europe. I'm like, my goodness, what's going on? And one of the amazing places you went to was Barcelona.
It was. Yeah, I love that. I feel like a few people saw my photos and were like, it's a Monday morning. How is she at a castle? Yeah, Barcelona was one of my favorite places. I spent 3 days there. And if I'm honest, I had bronchitis for most of my trip, so there were highs and lows. But I love Barcelona because it was one of those add-ons to the trip I didn't know I would do. It was like $99 for a flight if I left my baggage at the last hotel, and so I just went over with a backpack, and it was just so much fun. There was amazing architecture by Antoni Gaudi, who's kind of called the brainchild of Barcelona. And I'm not normally a huge historical person. Like, I don't tend to go for the architecture for places. I'll go to the beach or whatever. But I just loved his architecture. It's really creative and colourful and gothic. And I walked it like through the building. It was the Sagrada Familia. And I was like, man, this just has the fingerprints of God all over it, because it was so creative and it just felt like before his time. And I love architecture that has colour. And so I just loved it. I was walking around and I was like, man, this dude is in touch with nature or with God or something. There's something divine about this. It was just so incredible. And then I found out at the end he was a born-again Christian. So I was like, oh, it makes sense. And all of his work is based on creation. And so he would even do things like when he was creating buildings, he'd make sure that where they were situated, you'd always be able to see the skyline or the hills, because he felt that God's creation was always better. And he would base a lot of his designs on like fish and different creatures. And he was like, that's, all creativity and originality sparks from God himself. So you could really tell. So it was super cool.
That's awesome. It's interesting that you said you go places and you usually go to the beach. I've been to Barcelona twice when I was much younger, sort of 19, 20,
yeah,
I did go to the beach. Funnily enough, both times I actually stayed in a campground, which was right on the beach.
Oh,
and can I just say
nice.
the beach in Barcelona is very nice, but actually the city's more impressive. What sort of accommodation did you stay in, like a backpackers or something?
It was so cool. It was a backpacker. Oh, sorry, it was a hostel, but it was so much nicer than I expected. It was a cheap one, so I had no idea like what I was in for. It was right in the city centre, and it was right opposite a carnival. It was mostly for children, but I was trying to go on the rides anyway. It was so much fun. There was like those the little spinning swing rides, and then you could use a gun and try and shoot balloons, and if you got them, you won. I mean, I got none, but it was fun to try. And it was just right in the centre of everywhere. It was right by a really nice place to eat, and so because I was quite sick, it was enjoyable to not have to move too much. So I was quite stoked for that. But it was just cool. It was just beautiful, like, yeah, and fun, and the people were friendly and just chatty, and it was one of my favourite places.
Is it one? I remember, I mean, this is decades ago that I was there. Were the streets sort of quite cobblestone?
Yeah, it was a bit cobblestoney, and the way, like, they're really big on tapas. So you walk along the kind of cobblestone streets, and you got all these options and variety.
Yum.
Apparently, they had street dancers, like people just breaking out in the middle of the streets, doing salsa and that kind of thing. And we walked along the street where it was meant to be, didn't see it, and kind of turned around. And I found out the next day that if we'd just walked one more street, we would have seen it. But yeah, it just felt like everything was happening. And what I liked about Barcelona was, compared to some of the other places I'd been, it felt like there was equality between the tourists and those who actually lived there. It just felt like you were all one and you were all doing the same things together. Whereas when I went to Greece, for example, I felt like, oh man, the tourists get this good experience, and those who live there in the area I was in anyway, I was like, man, they're not actually having the best time.
Yeah, I have noticed that in some countries that I've been to as well. Now, I remember when I was in Barcelona going on a horse and cart ride around the city.
My gosh.
Did you do that?
I didn't.
Did you see that?
Cool.
Do they still have it?
I think I might have seen that
It's
once.
very old-fashioned, but actually it was quite fun.
How was that?
It was fun.
Do you like horse riding anyway?
Oh, I wouldn't say I'm a horse rider,
Yeah.
no, but I can sit in a cart, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
not need to do too much. But in terms of how did you get around the city? Is it somewhere quite easy to walk? Did you jump in Ubers?
Yeah, we did a lot of busing. I was with my boyfriend for a lot of it. And so the good part of that was he knew some Spanish. Because I found Barcelona, unlike a lot of places, it was more limited in those who spoke English. So there was a couple of bus trips where I was like, man, if I hadn't been with him, I would have not known where I was going. I was practicing my my Spanish language. I had I've got a little Google app with me all the time that was like trying to translate stuff. So yeah, definitely busing. Oh, another highlight was the water park. It was just cool. I was like, we only really have Rainbow's End and Parakai.
So what's the water park?
Just like huge slides. Again,
You are a big kid,
a
aren't
lot
you?
of children there. Yeah, I really am. So it was just fun to go down the slide. I was still very sick though, so really hyped myself up for that day. But it was fun.
And it would have been pretty hot there.
So hot. That was mostly what was enjoyable about it, is just knowing that you could get some relief from the heat.
And were people sort of into the siesta thing there, where that all sort of disappear? Shops would close up around 4 and that sort of thing?
I actually didn't see that. I didn't, but I mean, that might still happen. I did find when I was traveling, I kept thinking, like, what do people do for jobs here? Because they all just seem out and about. Even in France and that, I was like, y'all are just having coffee at 11 a.m. Like, does anyone work around here? So I don't know. But I understand this desire for a siesta because, gosh, it gets hot.
Yeah. So what would you give Barcelona out of 10, Becky?
Oh, I'd give it a 10.
10.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, thanks for coming on Armchair Travel. Lovely to hear about a wonderful part of the world.